Welcome, ladies and gents. My name is Derek James, and I am the host of commints.online podcast, a place where you can comment on your favorite shows, rate them with fresh mints, and get the latest TV info. Now go ahead and listen to this introduction music while I get me a bowl full of cereal. Yeah. All right, man, we are back. We are talking Bury Me Here, Walking Dead episode 13 of season 7. Phenomenal episode. We're going to get just dive right into the details of what happened. And, there's a lot to cover in this episode. It was very vivid. It went back and kind of gave a platform to one of my favorite characters, man, who's been one of my favorites for a very, very long time. So without further ado, I'm going to just let you know that there will be spoiler alerts. So I did say that on the first episode. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alerts. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to cut this off. If you haven't seen the latest episode of The Walking Dead, it's season 7, episode 13, Bury Me Here. So if you haven't seen it yet, I suggest you cut this off right now until you have seen it, and then come back on and give us a listen, man. We want to just discuss everything that happened. All right, so there's your time. So they start off this episode, man, very, very vague, right? So they're talking King Ezekiel right from the start, and they're loading up one of the trucks to do their daily routines, things like that, right? And it's really weird because it's like, what's going on? Are they gonna plot, or is this, like a kick in the face to the saviors? Like, what's going on? Okay. So then they break right into the theme music and everything of that of The Walking Dead. Excuse me. Then after the commercial, they come back and we see a short glimpse of Carol, right? We see, Morgan talking to Benjamin, and kind of, you all know who Benjamin is, right? He's the one who kind of trains with the younger kid that trains with Morgan, and he's kind of taking him under his wing, right? So they go through that whole process and kind of just walk us into what this episode is going to be about. And it's really one of my favorites so far. And the reason why I say that, well, this season at least, the reason why I say that is because it really highlights one of my favorite characters, which is Carol, and how she's come such a long way to be in the position that she's in, and she's such a strong character now, based on her whole the struggles that she went through at the beginning, and she wasn't really highlighted at the beginning, so she's really come to her own, and to me she's one of the biggest lifesavers of this show. So to see this kind of highlight her and go into a lot of her character and her getting back to the place to where she needs to be. I think it was important that they did this on this episode, and also with Morgan being how he is. Everyone knows Morgan. He upsets a lot of you. He just does these random things and says these things that everybody doesn't always agree with, because he's such a peaceful guy, right? So he wants to keep the peace and not kill, and and he knows, or thinks he knows, what the consequences will be, and it kind of highlights him as well, and his walk and what he's been through. So yeah, and it's just such a refreshing feel or sight to see them them two, because they have such a history now, right? It's not been a long history, but Carol and Morgan do have somewhat of a history and got a little bit of bad blood type of relationship, but then they also respect each other because they know they've both been there for a very long time and gone through a lot of the situations together. So awesome episode. And the things that I seen that were kind of sketch, right, were just for face value, watching Morgan, it's like, dude, like, come on, like, one of these days, like, if everybody is telling you the same thing, right? So if everybody is telling you, hey, one day you're gonna have to kill, one day you're gonna have to get some balls, get this gun, and do a little killing, man. Like, it's we're at that time now. You see what I'm saying? And Morgan's still like, no, man, don't want to kill. There's other ways to go about it. Like, no, Morgan, there is no other way to go about it. Pick up your gun, go shoot someone. You know what I mean? Things are getting real out here. Negan is not playing games. And to see the writers of the Walking Dead, franchise just write this great episode. I really loved, what they did with this episode. So, how they go into the whole thing with Morgan and him saying, hey, do you want to find out what happened with Alexandria? And, do you want to know why Daryl was here and what he was hiding from you? And Carol was like, tell me. He was like, nah, you're going to have to find out from Daryl. So it was really like back and forth with them two. And I think Carol kind of sensed something was wrong and people were hiding things from her. And she was just tired of it. She was just like, you know what? It's time to face it. And I think we all kind of wonder what's Carol, what she's been going through, right? She's been off in this place. She's like, leave me alone. I don't want to be talked to. Don't come by here, and she's been really strong willed and with everything going on, she just wants to be left alone. But now it feels like, okay, she's waking up, she's coming back to her own and she's ready to get going again. I guess she's gained enough energy and enough strength to keep going and keep fighting and things like that. So it's such a refreshing thing to see. Now, Morgan, it seems like he wants to be domesticated, right? So he wants to walk throughout this journey and just start life again. You know what I mean? He wants to find people that he can train to be better than everyone else, in a kind of sense. Like, he doesn't, train them to kill. He's not training them to kill. He's training them to be these, staff soldiers, to just work with the staff and beat people up without killing them and defeating their opponents and things like that. And then, this guy, Benjamin, that he's kind of been training has, walked into his room and he, given him a picture and things like that. Morgan, says, I've been looking at that nail for a long time, been wanting to do something with it. And Benjamin kind of explains to him that he's got a girl and he's, and Morgan's asking him, like, who's the girl, man? Who's the girl? So it's kind of like a nice little inside joke between the two of them. Morgan trying to find out which girl Benjamin is talking about. And then one of the Kingdomers, one of the main guys, walks up to Morgan. He's talking to him. He says, hey, man, if you got to kill, don't beat yourself up about it, if you have to. And when we're at that time now to where you need to. So I'm glad that, he gave him that advice because he needed to hear it, man. Morgan has been so dormant and with this non-killing and stuff like that. And with Negan being such, a rampant, killing machine on the show since he's, been introduced, I think Morgan needs to figure out, what he's going to do and if he's going to stay the same, how he's going to continue to live, because, I mean, at some point, Negan's going to go at Morgan and, it's going to be what it is if you don't want to kill. So, So then they're driving, right? They load up their regular, offering to the saviors, and now they're off. You got King Ezekiel with his whole crew, and then you got Morgan and the main guy. And everybody's walking up, and the road has been blocked by, numerous of carts, maybe 20, 30 carts or something like that, maybe even more. And they're in the road trying to figure out, okay, who blocked the road? Like, what's going on? Why is this road blocked? And they all got their guns up, and they're pointed and looking around and trying to figure out what's going on. And the main guy kind of hangs back in the balance, right? So he's back, and everybody else is in front. So now they're walking around this corner of this building, and they see this sign. Excuse me. So they see this sign, and they walk up to it, and everybody's like kind of like not really surprised, but like, what in the world is this? Like, and they walk up to it, and it's an empty dug hole. It's a dug hole, and it has a sign that says "Bury me here," and it's got the shovel in the dirt, like it's all ready for whoever to just throw a dead body in there and bury somebody. So it's almost like somebody dug this hole, for and wants to be done. If you got to kill me, or if I'm going to die, I'm going to die, but I want you to bury me here. And that's pretty much the premises of this episode, which was really great. And then, they kind of clear out the carts, get them out of the way of the road. And I thought that Negan or maybe some of the saviors were going to ambush them somehow. But then they cut to a scene to where the saviors are just waiting in their normal location, waiting for the kingdomers to offer up, their goods and everything like that. And you got the guy with the long hair. I don't really remember his name, but he's playing with Morgan's staff, and the kingdomers get out, and it's always such a heated conversation between the saviors and the kingdomers. And it's like the kingdomers, they want to retaliate, they want to be bad like the saviors, but they have so much discipline in there, and they follow King Ezekiel so much, and they go off of his words. So they really stand back and let them kind of the saviors just bully them until one of them breaks, right? And the main guy who's been causing a lot of the issues for the kingdomers, this is his time to kind of regain himself, and everybody's just fed up with the way that the saviors have been treating them. So you got the main guy from Negan's camp, the saviors, goes over to the truck, looks into the truck, realizes that there's only 11 melons, tells them you're short, right? So then the kingdomers all pull out, right? They got their guns pointed at the saviors got their guns pointed at the kingdomers, and he's like, no, you better count those melons again. And it was such, I'm like, oh, shoot, something about to go down, what's going to happen, this is point blank range, if the saviors got their guns pointed at the kingdomers got their guns pointed at the saviors, there's no blocks, you know what I mean? Like, if you shoot one bullet, a lot of people are going down regardless of whatever side. So, it's one of those points to where the drama of it kind of just reels you right in, and like, all right, it's about to go down. You got Morgan pointing his gun at, two different people and kind of waving it around, not really waving it around, but going back and forth, and they're not backing down. As King Ezekiel talks to the guy from the saviors, he walks back, he checks the melons, he's like, this can't be possible. The guy from the saviors like, yes, it is possible. You got 11 melons. You're supposed to give us 12. There's only 11 here, right? So something happens, and it's really brutal, right? So at this point, the saviors have crossed the line, right? So, but to go back a little bit, King Ezekiel is like, all right, well, no, the guy from the saviors is like, all right, so if you don't have the offering that we talked about, that we discussed, then you have to give up your guns, right? So King Ezekiel is like, no, we're not giving up our guns. you get, and then they kind of talk it out a little bit and kind of hash it out. And then King Ezekiel is like, well, give Morgan his staff back and we'll give you all of our guns. So I like that about King Ezekiel. He knew how much that staff meant to Morgan, and he was like, give him his staff back and we'll give you the guns. So the guy from the Saviors, he wasn't rolling, right? So he was just like, no, give us your guns. So he gave up their guns, and the reason why he wanted them to give up the guns is because he said, hey, the guy from the Savior says, hey, it's about to get real emotional right now, and you all don't need to have guns in your hands because you may, be too emotional, and a bloodbath may, a massacre might start. So they give up their guns. They're talking. Now the Saviors have all of the guns, and only thing they have is a staff. Morgan's looking back and forth. You can see him getting kind of antsy and a little frustrated, and so much emotions are in this scene. And it's such a good scene because it's really carefully played and acted. I mean, these guys acted, to a T. Like, it was perfect. And, you see the guys from the Kingdomers getting upset and emotions rising. So then the guy with the long hair from the Saviors then pulls his gun out, points it at the main guy from the Kingdomers, the kind of guy that wants to fuel the battle, right? He wants to join in and kind of get things going with Rick and stuff like that. So he points the gun at him. I really got to find out this guy's name, man. I really have to find out his name. And I can't think of it right now for some reason. But then, so they're talking, and then the guy from the long, with the long hair then shoots the shot, right? And then they black out and go to a commercial because you kind of don't know who he shoots because he aims it away from the guy who he has the gun pointed at, which was really I thought that was clever. They break for a commercial. You don't know who he shot out of the Kingdomers, and it really just added to the anticipation, the edginess of this scene. And just like I said, it was well played. I love that scene. And then they come back from the break and find out that it was Benjamin, right? So he actually shot Benjamin. Benjamin's on the ground, and the Saviors kind of have like a little quarrel between them. Once the main guy finds out that the guy that always gets kind of agitated and fighting and stuff like that. Once he find out who he shot, then they go through a little quarrel themselves, talking about the Saviors. And it's just such an epic episode, bro. Like, one of my favorites, like I said, thus far in this season, because it had so much depth to it. It had so much depth. And to see Benjamin, one of the youngest guys on the Kingdomers, one of the main, characters of the Kingdomers, one of the main roles, to be hurt, shot, everybody's frantic now, and so many emotions. And Morgan is telling the guy, get in the truck, let's go, and, then they cut to a shot to where Carol is, just back at her house, where Carol's doing what she does. And, Carol can hear the truck or car rumbling at a distance, and she knows that, somebody's coming up pretty fast. So they come in, they, throw Benjamin on the table, and they're trying to save him. And of course he dies. You can really see the pain of everyone once Benjamin dies. It's gotten to the point to where, it's getting a little ridiculous now, right? The Saviors are just too much. Regardless of what happens, it's something that always happens. Regardless if they're good, regardless if they abide by their rules and try and do everything that the Saviors want them to do, people still get hurt. People still get killed, right? So now they're at a place to where it's like, so when is enough? It feels like, and to see Benjamin, pass and see how the characters respond to it, it's really confirming how important, this guy was. Morgan leaves and pretty much just goes into, a rampage, and just, they're flashing back with all these memories, and, and he can't take it. He kind of snaps. And as he's snapping in the middle of the road, he actually kicks a box, and the box has a melon in it, right? And the melon rolls out. And then Morgan thinks back of what happened on the road. And he remembers that while they were out in front, there was one guy that was behind. And the guy that was behind was the main guy that's been fueling everyone in the kingdom to kind of fight, to stand up to the saviors, right? He wants to fight. He wants to kill him, and he wants to get his revenge. He was the one that did it. He was the one that held the melon bag. So Morgan confronts him, goes to his room, and lets him know, I know what you did, And he kind of confronts the guy, and he kind of gives him this spiel, and he's talking to Morgan. And I thought Morgan was just going to kill him right then and there. Like, as he's looking at him in his room, you can tell the way he's moving his body that, if he says something or does something, Morgan is just going to take him out. But Morgan sits there and listens to the guy, and he's listening to him talk, and his expression just doesn't change. You can tell Morgan is just fed up, and it's really taking everything in him not to kill this guy. And the guy tells Morgan, he's just like spilling all the beans, like, yeah, I did it. And I'm the one who blocked the road, and, and I'm the one who, dug the coffin, dug the hole, dug the ditch, and said, bury me here, because he wanted to die. He wanted to sacrifice himself so that the kingdomers would understand that they have to fight. And he was willing to go to those lengths to ensure that happened. And, now he's telling Morgan of a plan, a secondary plan that he has. And he's like, now that this has happened, they killed Benjamin. It's all my fault. I'm the one they should have killed. But, we make things right with them. We tell them we're going to do everything they need us to do, and this and that. And then once we get back in with them, once we get close to them again, then that's when we'll strike. Then that's when we'll attack. And it was kind of like, it's kind of, it's a good plan, but coming from you now, a guy that got Benjamin killed, it's like, we don't want to hear that shit. And you can tell he feels sorry about it, but Morgan is just devastated. Like it completely just, floors Morgan in this episode with Benjamin dying. He's really big on youth. He's really big on training people and having the people that are under him understand why he's different and how he's different, and and he makes it known, and he's liked for it. He's liked for it in most of the communities that he's in, because I guess people are tired of killing. They're exhausted from killing walkers and then meeting other humans that want to take their stuff. And now that the Negan and the Saviors are just, like I said, on a rampage and just killing machines, I think everybody is getting to the point to where they're fed up. And I think this was the tipping point for Morgan, because he knew, in his mind, to me, he knew that the Saviors would not let up. He knew that this guy set everything up. He knew that the guy from the Kingdomers set it up. I think he was at a crossroads, because it was like he knows that the Saviors aren't going to let up. They're going to keep killing. They're going to keep bullying until they kill them all off one by one. But he also knew that it could have been avoided if this guy from the Kingdomers didn't do anything. Like, you didn't have to set up anything. So at the end of this guy's speech to Morgan, and he's talking to Morgan, Morgan kind of confirms that he kind of agrees with this guy, and but he's still so lost. Like, looking at Morgan, he seems so lost. And then they cut to they cut to a scene where Morgan is in a room by himself, candle lit, and he's rubbing his hands. And you can tell there's a lot on his mind, and there's a lot that he's fighting internally, right? And then they show King Ezekiel with with the younger brother of Benjamin, and Morgan sees it, and it's kind of just unraveling. he's really unraveling in this episode. And I think he needed to go through this, for his character. He needed to go through this because he's been, like I said, so dormant for so long, right? So to see him back at that place to where it's like, oh, Morgan's about to get real again. So then they cut to the scene where the opening scene, to where they're loading in this one melon into the truck. And like I said, they have it all tied down. And it's like, at the beginning of the scene, I'm thinking, are they going to set somebody up? Are they setting them up? And it was this scene. So they arrive early to the location, to the drop off point in the truck. They're looking, it seems like they're looking around, and they have this one melon here. And they all get out the truck, and Morgan walks up to the guy and says, "Did you tell him?" And he was like, "No, not now." And Morgan is referring to the guy telling King Ezekiel about the incident. Did you tell him that you set this all up? Did you tell him you're the reason that Benjamin got killed? And King Ezekiel is like, what's going on? Tell me. And the guy's like, nah, I'm going to tell you later. And King Ezekiel is like, no, we'll discuss this now. And then as he says that, of course, the saviors pull up. And then Morgan kind of walks off, and he sees the staffs on the ground, and he sees Benjamin blood, and he's looking at the spot right where Benjamin fell when he got shot. And I think he loses it again. Like internally, he's trying hard to keep it together. And the Kingdomers are just standing there, and you can tell Morgan is kind of off by himself, and looking down at the ground and kind of just trying to gather himself. And the saviors walk up. First thing they do, of course, is throw salt on the wound, right? So guy says, well, what happened to the boy? Is the boy all right? And no one says anything. No one says anything. And it's quiet as a mouse. And then a guy kind of thinks to himself, oh, he died. No one answers. No one speaks. He's looking down at the ground. And he looks back at his guy from the Saviors, which has this smug smirk on his face, right? The guy with the long hair. And he tells him, you walk your ass back to the compound or whatever. He said, if you even look at me wrong, if you even say anything, I will shoot you dead right now. So the guy was mad, at the other guy, which kind of showed that they do have like a human side a little bit, or at least this guy does. He tells him to walk back to the compound. So the guy walks away. And then the main guy from the Saviors then talks to the people, right? So the Kingdomers have this one melon, and the guy who set everything up that got Benjamin killed walks over the melon to the guy from the Saviors, and they have the shot cut to Morgan, and they just show Morgan walk up, drop one staff on the ground, and then takes his other staff and starts beating this guy from the Kingdomers, the guy who set it all up, right to the ground, hits him maybe 3 or 4 times. Boom, now he's down on the ground. Morgan jumps on top of him and just wraps his hands around the guy's throat and is just choking this guy. And they cut to a shot to where King Ezekiel, and he's got so much expression on his face, and he's so surprised he can't believe that this guy Morgan, who's been so peaceful, been so good to the community, is losing his shit, right? So King Ezekiel is like just devastated, like what's going on. And then they show the other Kingdomers, and they can't believe what's going on. Why is Morgan doing this? Why is Morgan doing this? And then as soon as Morgan is done killing this guy, and this is what he says.
He set it all up. He blocked the road yesterday, made us late. It was all him.
So, and he's telling the guys like, yeah, it was all him, and he was telling them, he was even telling the Saviors, he tried to set this whole thing up so we can fight each other, so we can go at each other's throats. And that's was Morgan's justification to him killing this guy, and they couldn't believe it. Like they're so lost, and they're so puzzled, and And, the guys from the Saviors are just standing there. And Morgan is kind of just off. And he stands up really quick and he's talking to the guy from the Saviors. And then this is what he says.
Wanted to show you that we get it. That we understand what it is that we need to do. That we know how to go on.
So he's telling this guy from the Saviors verbatim what the guy that he talked to, that the guy that he just killed, what he talked to him about. And it was just such, I was a little confused at the same sense, like, okay, this guy wanted to die. But he told Morgan, this is what we need to do. And now Morgan is telling the Saviors verbatim, word for word, what this guy says. So it almost gives me a sense like, oh, shit, right? Morgan is finally standing up. He took the advice of this guy, which means that he's ready to fight. He's not saying he's ready to fight, but he's ready to fight. It's obvious, right? Because he gets on top of this guy. He kills him with his bare hands. And then he tells the guy verbatim what the guy talked to him about. So it was just a classic Morgan scene. And I was glad that, they brought that to light.
Thought he could choose, and that's why Dwayne had to die.
So, and then he actually messes up, and you can tell he's kind of lost because he says,
And that's why Dwayne had to die.
and if anybody's a Walking Dead fanatic, they know that is Morgan's son that died. And he was trying to explain to King Ezekiel about Benjamin, and then he realizes that he made a mistake, and then he comes back and kind of corrects himself and says Benjamin, but he had Dwayne on his mind, which means that he is in that place. He is in that place to where he's losing it, right? So it's good to see him there. Yeah, and King Ezekiel tells Morgan, come on, let's go back, let's figure this out. And Morgan snaps at us. It's not now, man. I told you not now. So it's good to kind of see everybody unraveling and really getting fed up with what's going on and what's being taken place in their areas, in Alexandria and in the hilltop and with the Kingdomers. It's Negan is really just gotten out of hand. And it's to the point to where people really just are like, it's either stand up now or do nothing forever. And I don't think they want that. I think they have come to an understanding, all of them collectively, have come to an understanding that it's now or never. And this is really a turning point. Everybody's starting to get on board. In the last episode, you've seen Sasha and Rosita kind of go off on their own and kind of start to plan their attack. And then now you got, Morgan feeling some type of way. You got King Ezekiel feeling some type of way. You already got Rick and Michonne, doing their thing. So, I mean, it's a collective a feeling that they're all going through, and it's only getting worse by the second. And then after the commercial break, they come back. You see Morgan carrying the guy's body. He's putting the dirt over the ditch that he dug for himself, where he said bury me here. Now Morgan's putting the sand over him, and as he's digging, he realizes he sees a book bag, and the book bag says Katie. So he puts that over the guy's dead body as well. And, he starts to continue to bury him. And it was really good to kind of see Morgan come back to life. I mean, like I said, he's been so dormant, and to see him not snap and going through these hard times, I mean, you would expect to see a lot more emotion and a lot more expression. And most of them are just walking around trying to be cool. But us as the audience, we're looking at like, we know, like, y'all need to be going crazy. And then he's going out and he's battling the walkers, and and then he talks to he talks to Carol, and he tells Carol, he says, do you want to, do you want me to tell you what happened? And this is where it really gets good for me because Carol is my bitch, right?
Take a lemonade. That'll be
I love me some Carol, man. And Morgan is at the point to where he's kind of been walking on eggshells with Carol. Because that's Carol, right? I mean, she don't care how you feel. She right to the point, rude, blunt, and she'll tell you like it is. So when Morgan goes up to her door and he's telling her, he's saying, hey, do you want to know what's going on? And Carol says, tell me. And I can't believe the first name that pops out his mouth when he tells her. And he tells her that Glenn and Abraham have died. And that's not all, he's also killed, more people. And he goes into their names. And you can tell that Carol, if she wasn't a strong leader, she would have collapsed. Just hearing Glenn's name, I'm sure it was something that you try to block. When you hear it, it's like, no, he couldn't have said Glenn. He must have mispronounced a name or something. But yeah, I mean, so to see that, and to see the expression on her face and know that she's ready, and she kind of stops Morgan, and Morgan's like, I'm leaving. And I had to replay it with the captions because it was so epic what Carol says to Morgan. She says something like, you don't have to go, or something along that manner. And meaning that, where she's at, she's gone. But she didn't have to go to be gone. You see what I'm saying? She's right there within reach of them, but she's still gone. So she's saying you don't have to go, and be off by yourself in order to be gone. So what she does is she walks back up to King Ezekiel, and she pretty much is ready. She's like, I'm ready to fight. And King Ezekiel pumps the brakes on her and says, not today though. You know what I mean? And it was real cool. It was real mellow. And everybody's coming to that understanding of where you can't just lay back. And you can't just let Negan take over this world, because it doesn't matter what you do. Negan doesn't care. He don't care if you suck up. He don't care if you get him everything in the world. He's still gonna kill you. And he still does not care at all. Not one bit. And now that everybody is on the same page, oh my gosh, I cannot wait. But ladies and gentlemen, that was Bury Me Here, Season 7, Episode 13 of what just happened last night. And as you know, today is Monday, March the 13th of 2017. And it was a great episode. I don't know if a lot of you liked it. A lot of you were kind of just, didn't like the last episode with Michonne and Rick doing their thing. And then some of you didn't like the episode before that, which was Eugene's episode, right? So, but I felt neutral amongst them all, and I've loved every episode this season. It's been some dry parts, but it hasn't been that much. And the only thing I have noticed is that I didn't like them pretty much swaying the focus of everything to Negan and the Saviors. I really didn't like that. Like on a lot of episodes, it kind of showed us what was going on in their camp and what we don't like these guys. any fanatic of The Walking Dead and that's a fan of, a lot of the main characters, we don't like these guys. We don't want to know what's going on over there. So that was kind of my whole beef about it. But other than that, it's been a phenomenal season thus far, and they've really explained a lot. We've really come, now that Glenn is gone and Abraham is gone, we've noticed that we've really come a far way. Like we've had a journey in The Walking Dead. I mean, there's so many people that died in The Walking Dead. It's going to be hard to remember most of their names, and most of them were big characters. So that just goes to show you how far we've come. So wow. The journey still continues for all my Walking Dead fans. I will continue to bring you more episodes and more podcasts of The Walking Dead and talk about it. And I'll try to invite some guests over so we can get a difference of opinions from a lot of people, and you don't have to sit here for an hour and just listen to me. But I appreciate you listening. Like I said, I am your host. My name is Derek James, and this is commints.online podcast. Please tune in to more podcasts. Episode 3 will, of course, be switched over to The Bachelor and what will happen for tonight's episode. And all of the upcoming other podcasts, we'll go back and forth between a lot of shows. And please be up to date on your commints.online. That is our website. And we do want you to just, go and have some fun, man. Go give us some mints. Go rate some shows. Go talk about the shows on our website. We invite you. We want to thank you for doing so. And also our Facebook page, we have one, commints.online as well. Comments spelled COMMINTS. And yes, we know we spelled it wrong, and it's for a purpose. All right. But commints.online, our Facebook page, please go and like that and subscribe so we can keep you up to date whenever a show is on or whenever a show is coming out. Don't forget, man, Game of Thrones coming out soon. In the summertime it hits. And also, if you're a fan of Empire, Lee Daniels' Empire, that comes back on this month as well. Game of Thrones is later in the summer. But just stay up to date. And for all my Walking Dead fans, man, I salute you. Thank you for listening.